Now, even if you don't consider yourself a religious person and haven't set foot in a church in years, you will have at least heard the term Good Samaritan, which describes someone who helps a complete stranger in need. Now, the term actually comes from one of Jesus' more famous parables. A critic of Jesus once challenged him to define the word neighbor in the Old Testament command to love thy neighbor. The critic wanted to know who was his neighbor. So Jesus answered with a parable about a Jewish man who was viciously attacked and robbed and then essentially left for dead alongside of the road. Eventually, two religious leaders, each separately, came across the wounded man but chose not to get involved, and so they ignored him and simply walked on by. However, a Samaritan man whom the Jews despised did stop. Even more, he took the injured man to a local inn to recover and paid for all of his expenses up front with a promise to return and pay for any additional costs. Now, while the obvious point of this ancient parable is that everyone is our neighbor, here's something else about the parable that I think our modern culture desperately needs to hear. Notice the personal sacrifice that the Samaritan made by taking the injured man to the inn and forking out a large sum of his own money to help in the man's recovery. And unlike many today who'd take a bunch of selfies with the injured man and then post them on Facebook, the Samaritan did it all with no fanfare. Now, I point this out because there are many today who like to play the Good Samaritan card. Politicians who try to buy votes with extravagant social programs that future generations will ultimately have to pay for. Hollywood celebrities at award ceremonies who profess undying love for the disadvantaged and yet who don't actually do anything to help. People on social media who pride themselves on all of the trendy social causes that they post and share about endlessly, and yet who don't actually do anything about them in real life. Being a good Samaritan means more than mouthing empty platitudes. It actually means loving your neighbor without the fanfare. Well, that's my take. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope to see you next Thursday.